What's up, everybody? Welcome to GoJo with Mike Golick Jr. That is me. With me, as always, styling and profiling, Brandon Newman. Brandon, you look good today.
Thank you, Mike. You look good every day. Are you ready to 2-minute drill this mother effer today?
I think I am, Brandon, and by 2-minute drill, I'm assuming you mean just the two of us. We can make it if we try, because it is a Mike and Brandon show today on GoJo. And I bring up how you look, Brandon, because as we are going to get to what's going on in the rest of the show, Kevin Durant and the Nets finally kind of ended their whole charade for this offseason. Nick Saban got a massive payday, and maybe one of the weirder headlines in the world of music I've seen in quite some time. All things we want to get to today, but we can talk about what we look like because we're on YouTube now.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
so,
Michael.
In addition to being able to download, subscribe, rate, and review GoJo wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a 5-star rating and a review, you can now head over to the DraftKings YouTube page, make sure you subscribe there, and then when you go and look at their playlists, GoJo with Mike Golick Jr. now has its own playlist on there. We're going to be working hard to get a lot of the videos uploaded there. Give us patience. It's early on. This is new for us, and it is a lot of work for Brandon. So just have some patience. We appreciate that.
I think it's a normal cadence right now to be one day behind with the video. So right now, we're just one day behind with the video. Audio, same day. Video the next day. If you want to see our beautiful faces, say our beautiful takes, well, Mike's beautiful takes and my bad ones, then you can go and subscribe, as Mike said, to DraftKings. You're welcome. Thanks, Hank, for getting us up there.
Yes, we appreciate you, Hank, and for everyone helping get us to this point. We're very excited. So, again, DraftKings YouTube page, the GoJo with Mike Golick Jr. playlist under there, and we'll be getting plenty of stuff. There's videos of our conversation in our podcast with Charlotte Wilder already up there, the discussions about the Manti Te'o documentary, and plenty of other things. Our roses coming off the weekend, so we're very excited about that. We're also excited because it means we get to do dumb stuff like this. So, Brandon, before we get to the big story in New York, we have to get to the other story in New York, because we saw the viral video of a Yankees fan caught in the stands turning a hot dog into... Go ahead. You're going to correct me already?
I was going to say a very drippy. No, you had everything right, and I apologize for cutting you off, and I'm going to do less of that. He was dripped out. He was a very drippy, swagged out Yankees fan. Mike, I just wanted to mention that this man was wearing a polo Ralph Lauren Yankees hat. He had on some Jordan 1s that matched his khakis. It was one of those things where, like, in New York, it's like, is he wearing bummy clothes or is he dressed very well? I think he's swagged out pretty well. I just want to put that in context while we talk about what this gentleman did.
Yes, absolutely. It's great context, as is the fact that the Yankees got a 4-2 win over the Mets, and Aaron Judge is still absolutely beating the piss out of baseballs. All that stuff is normal right now. Well, maybe not the Yankees winning and doing well. That had kind of been a tough one lately. But this fan at the Yankees game was caught on camera turning a hot dog into a straw for his beer in the stadium. And there have been a lot of takes on this over the last couple of days. Being the mayonnaise guy, I got tagged in a lot of this stuff. And I'm going to be honest, Brandon, when I initially looked at it, it was one of those flavor combinations where I said, no, I could see this kind of making sense. I actually don't think this is going to be overly terrible. Hot dogs and beer get drank and ate together all the time. And so what's the harm in just getting them a little bit closer together? And so...
Oh, I'm 100% with you, Mike. I saw that and I was like, it was one of those things where, like, have I done that before? Or do I just really think that's a great idea?
Right. It's innovation. It's what we love to see, especially at sporting events. Baseball games, I feel like, are unique, as I am getting ready next week to go back to the Hartford Yard Goats for Mike Golick Jr. bobblehead night, which still feels weird to say and will be even weirder to do. Shout out to the Yard Goats for that one. That's a stadium and a ballpark known for food innovation. They're Dunkin' Donuts Park. They put a bunch of chicken and donut combination dishes together and make it really interesting. And I feel like every baseball park kind of loves that. This dude said, nah, I don't need the fanfare and I don't need something already made. I'm going to do bad all by myself. And so it made us think, and I know we're not the only ones to do this. I think I saw Big Cat and those guys on the Yak do this already. So spare me the copycat stuff here. We're just fans of trying new things out. Brandon and I have found what we could in our homes. Brandon has a chicken sausage, and I have a banana.
Yes.
Now, Brandon, what's your beverage of choice? Because I want banana and rosé.
Mike, I didn't realize that we were customizing our foods. I'm sorry, a fly was trying to get my chicken sausage, try to swat it away for our viewing and listening audience. I didn't realize we were switching up. I was just going to drink water with this, but now I feel like I need to pour me a tall glass of something.
Yeah, I mean, you can do whatever you want in this. So for the non-YouTube audience here, we're going to try and make these straws real quick out of this. I just wanted to see, for science sake, one, if I could work this straw through a banana without breaking it.
Yeah, because it's bending.
Yeah.
Mike's slowly working it from the bottom of the banana. He bent it at a nice time where the curve happened.
It really sounds weird when you say all that. All right, I got a pretty good hole in this banana. Let's see if I can make this happen.
Okay. So listen, wait. Let me say this real quick. I thought that the weirder thing about doing this is you need a straw to do it. So you have to be pretty committed to drinking the thing
yes,
through
you've
the food.
already got a straw. You've just decided that you want, which edible straw is totally normal thing, right? Like, especially when you think of desserts, any sort of chocolate straw or something like that. All right. Do you want me to wait for you in the chicken sausage here? Do you want me to do this?
You banana your rosé.
All right, hold on. Here
Banana straw your rosé.
Oh, it worked really well. It worked really well.
Surprised you got you in the back of the throat.
A little bit, honestly. I was not prepared for this. I'm going to tell you, not prepared. Live as we're recording this right now, I looked out my window that I still had open, and there's a young couple of parents walking up with their child on a baby Bjorn that 100% just made eye contact with me as I was slurping rosé through a straw.
Oh, man. They know what time it is. I'm sure they're online out there.
I wonder if it makes the banana taste better.
Mike, that was smart. I thought you would sip through the pointy part, but you sipped through the base part that was ripped, and it looks like it has a really good process there.
Honestly, again, if we're going to do potential flavor combinations of edible straws and rosé, and at GoJo Show on Twitter, download, subscribe, rate, and review GoJo wherever you get your podcasts. Yes. Let us know the best potential combination for a food straw and a drink. Because again, I think beer and hot dog goes together really well. I now think banana and rosé go together pretty well. Maybe banana and any wine. It's sweet especially, so a nice summer wine like this probably going to do decent numbers, but I'm open to other options.
Yeah, I'd imagine the banana, the darker you get, the more difficult it may be. Maybe more ripe banana for the darker reds might pair well together. I would say for me, I have this straw here and this chicken sausage. Now I want to say I thought I did this before because I have commonly used food as a straw in my life.
So, what's your most notable example?
I mean, there's been a day in the life of Brandon Newman who has stumbled upon a churro that isn't filled with caramel, however you say it, chocolate, and is just empty and hollow and waiting to get put into the bottom of some cereal milk. So I've done cereal in a churro, drinking some milk. Anytime I'm anywhere and food straw is an option, I've ran at it. In high school back in the day, the Sour Punch straws, I used to dip those in my little McDonald's drink. I used to mix Powerade and High C, the orange High C at McDonald's back in high school. Put the little the straw in there. The salt dissolve. I mean, the sugar dissolves in a nice way. So listen, I'm not new to this. I'm true to this. This is my first time doing this though, and I am going to put this chicken sausage through the straw. If you're looking at this on YouTube, you're enjoying it. If you're listening to it, you're going to want to see it. And I'm going to put this through some water. So
all right, here, Brandon. Okay, you do this right now, and while you get your chicken sausage ready, what I'm going to do is start giving takes about Kevin Durant and what the Nets have done in the NBA. Beautiful. Because for anyone that's missed it, we've talked a lot on this show about Kevin Durant this summer, and said going all the way back to when he went to the Brooklyn Nets and requested a trade. As we're getting ads for crispy chicken sandwiches popping up on my computer, Kevin Durant earlier this offseason reportedly asked the Brooklyn Nets for a trade. Went to Joe Tsai and reportedly met with him in London while him and James Harden were over there at a Travis Scott concert, and formally requested a trade from the team, was trying to get his way out of Brooklyn after what we know had transpired over the last year or so. Yesterday we got the news, courtesy of a statement from the Nets general manager Sean Marks, that said Coach Steve Nash and I, together with Governors Joe Tsai and Clara Wu Tsai, met with Kevin Durant and Rich Kleiman in Los Angeles yesterday. We have agreed to move forward with our partnership. We're focusing on basketball with one collective goal in mind, building a lasting franchise to bring a championship to Brooklyn. Now, again, he requested that trade on June 30th. So a little over 2 months later, we now have a resolution to this entire saga, as Brandon has now effectively drilled the hole in his sausage. He is preparing it for its entry into the water. And I think the interesting part about this, Brandon, with the Nets is we talked so much on this show about what the precedent had been in this league. Star players constantly getting their way out of situations they don't enjoy. This is a league where, unique to all other sports, star players have even more sway and say in what their futures look like. And we had constantly, James Harden, who he was on that trip with, is the chief example in the last handful of seasons of a guy who made a situation that he wanted out of one that he didn't. And so when we saw this, and we saw the reports that Kevin Durant would apparently, according to one GM around the league, rather retire than go back to playing for the Nets, all the little fires we talked about him starting along the way did not deter the Brooklyn Nets, who reportedly dealt with a decree from Kevin Durant that it was either him or their head coach and their GM going out the door. And the Nets stood pat. Wow. And Brandon, the thing I wonder on the other side of this is, you're going to get ready to drink out of a chicken sausage here in a second, is if this is a anomaly, if this is a one-off, or if this is a win for the establishment in the NBA in an unprecedented wave of player empowerment and them governing how they move about the league. I wonder if other teams are going to look at Brooklyn and say, all right, you've got a player who's under your control for the foreseeable future. You've got a player that could potentially make a mess of the situation that you have in the name of getting out of your organization. You've sacrificed years and resources to make this happen. And they stood firm and did not budge. I don't know if this is more Kevin Durant and his unique personality, who along the way has rebuffed some of these reports himself on Twitter and has gone after people who he thought were spreading lies about him and his future, or if this is truly a reminder for certain people in certain positions of power on NBA teams that you can play hardball to a certain point and try and convince these players to stay.
I think it's the opposite, Mike. I think these players and these coaches are working in cahoots, and I know I am conspiracy theory, brother, but work with me here. Kevin Durant has a 4-year contract. He know damn well he wasn't going nowhere, right? Kyrie Irving, whatever you want, yes, Kyrie, or what's his name? What's his nickname? KD, the chosen one. What's Kyrie's nickname?
I really don't know, but his last name is Irving. There's a G there.
No, we talked about it on this podcast, Mike. Anyways, he knew damn well he wasn't going anywhere either. I think it was more of an opportunity for exactly what you said, for the general public, for other players in the NBA, of everyone else to recognize that, oh, look at this. The NBA stars don't have all the power. I think this is more of a calculated initiative, knowing damn well that these two weren't going anywhere this year, right? To let everyone know that, hey, at the end of the day, sometimes these contracts do matter.
Well, so I'd say this too. It makes me think back on a lot more of these situations as we paint with a broad stroke and a broad brush in the NBA here, which probably isn't super fair. Because I'm trying to think now, and you can correct me if I'm wrong about some of these other situations. Certainly, Ben Simmons and what happened in Philadelphia, and James Harden and what happened in Houston are really top of mind and in recent memory. But again, and I saw Nick Wright and others bring this up as a defense of LeBron, of what he has done in his place, how it's aged relative to some of these other moves, basically saying LeBron James never forced his way out of a contract. He always signed short deals and made his moves as a free agent. But when you look around the NBA, Kevin Durant, who gets constantly victimized and taken to task for leaving to go to Golden State, leaving thereafter, did so as a free agent in both instances, unless I'm wrong, right? We had Kevin Durant's recruitment in the Hamptons when everyone came out there from Golden State to visit and recruit him. LeBron James has been the poster for player movement, but it's never been with this force out. Instead, I think when we think of that, it is the recency of James Harden and knowing, all right, we had the things where everyone thought he was wearing the fat suit. Ben Simmons and the 76ers were at this constant standoff for a long time. But correct me if I'm wrong, I'm struggling to think of, I guess Anthony Davis would also fall into that category. Ending his time, the trade that went down, LeBron and him, I think behind the scenes, and a lot of people thought he was willing to sit out, but I guess that was another example of a player forcing their way out. So maybe it's a little more evenly split down the middle, because there certainly was a lot of power on Anthony Davis's side going to the Pelicans and basically saying, I'll sit. LeBron and I want to do this together in Los Angeles. You'll give me what I want. And so maybe it is somewhere in the middle on this, Brandon, where it's not as full-blown and far gone as we want to make it out to be, but it's also been a trend, and we've seen it happen multiple years in succession now. And so you do wonder what effect this has on other teams as they go forward and try and deal with superstars in a similar fashion.
Maybe it's not even a trend, Mike. Maybe it is just what happens in the regular world. Maybe the NBA is just like AT&T or any regular place that has a job, right? The majority of the people that are working are unhappy with their employer for whatever reason, but only some of them have the leverage to make their employer make a move for them, right? And then the rest of them are actively pissed off, and everyone in the company knows that they're mad. Everyone knows, like, okay, disgruntled employee A, and they stay there and they're there for until they retire.
Well, I would say this though, Brandon, to that is, and this is why I don't want to discount Kevin Durant and how unique he is in this, because when you talk about having leverage, I heard Stephen A saying on First Take today, I don't think he's wrong. When Kevin Durant's fully healthy, he's probably still the best player in basketball. And at the very worst, he's top. At the very worst, he's top 2, top 3. And so if anyone was going to have leverage in their situation, it's that guy. Now, we might be discounting the team situations a little bit in these. Go back to Anthony Davis and what happened with the Pelicans. That was a team that felt like it was spinning its tires. I believe the year before, him and Drew Holiday were still down there. And it had a little bit of first-round playoff success against Golden State, but not enough to make you say there's a bright future here that we need to hold on to when we could go and get a bunch of resources in return for this. It's, with James Harden and the Rockets, they felt like they had tried every iteration of star alongside of James Harden. They felt like they had tried to maximize everything about his tenure in there, and it was time to blow it up and start with something new. Now, you can wait and see if we think the results on that are really worthwhile or not, but all that is to say, you look at Brooklyn and the situation feels decidedly different, right? They're still in the middle of having pushed their chips all into the middle of the table, harvesting what was a fringe playoff team to get Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving over here. Now, 2 seasons into this, one of them being a pandemic season, actually 2 of them being pandemic-affected seasons, you could realistically, if you're the Brooklyn Nets, say, our best shot is still out there. And so for us to blow it up now for anything less than what the best player in the NBA might be worth, looking at that situation, you had, I think, clearly a less willing partner in that organization, and maybe a superstar in Kevin Durant who, because we hear all the time, all he wants to do is play basketball. Kevin Durant tries to dismiss any notion that he's concerned about legacy or all these things, and that he's just here to hoop and get a little bit better every day. Maybe he was an easier party to convince and say, listen, Kevin, we're not getting anywhere close to the offer, and so we're not going to give you up for less than that. You and Kyrie are going to walk into a better situation as far as his availability and yours on the court than we've had in the last couple of years. And if everyone stays healthy, we're going to be a team with a real shot at this on the back end. So that's all I can keep up with, Brandon. Like, you look at the current right now on DraftKings Sportsbook, the futures for the NBA to win the NBA Finals. Boston is the favorite, followed by the Clippers, the Warriors, and then Brooklyn is the 4th favorite on that one, and then that would put them as 2nd in the East. So right now, with everything that happened last year, all of that in mind, the last 2 seasons, they're still one of the top 4 teams favored to win the NBA Finals.
Yeah, but Mike, that's just because they have Kevin Durant. And I don't agree that this window of them pushing their chips all in, that they're still in it. That window is gone. James Harden is no longer there. I think and also their two stars are no longer there happily. I think that was a big part of the narrative, and I don't want to get skipped, is how important it is that Kyrie Irving and
why do you keep taking
Kevin
the
Durant, Kyrie Irving, that's how you say it, Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant were both so excited to be in Brooklyn, to bring a championship to Brooklyn, to play together in Brooklyn. And it was so important to be in New York City and to be in Brooklyn. And they were so happy to be in Brooklyn. They're no longer happy to be in Brooklyn. I think that's a big part of the narrative, and therefore it's no longer this championship window for them to push all in. Now we're at the point where we're like the LeBron James Lakers, like we're just trying to get what we can while we have them. And fingers crossed it's a big playoff win at the end of the day. Right? Because all the action that's come towards the Brooklyn Nets, like, let's not act like Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving haven't delivered to the importance of what the Brooklyn Nets are, just them being on the roster.
Right. There is a huge relevance factor in that, which I think is also part of this equation for the Brooklyn Nets, is they've sacrificed a lot to make sure that in a town that wants the Knicks to be great so bad, they're at least talked about. They at least make national headlines because of these guys. And we remember going back to year one, how close they were it not for injury, for coming together, playing very few games and still kicking everyone's teeth in when it got to the postseason. That was very real. And so they can still hold on to that. And listen, it's a lot of coulda, shoulda, woulda right now. It's hoping that everyone's healthy, right, that now that there's no more COVID restrictions in New York, Kyrie Irving's availability becomes more consistent, that Ben Simmons is back and healthy and in a better headspace and able to give them something. Because on this team now, he doesn't have to be number 2. He's third on the list. Ben Simmons is going to be in the easiest position he has ever been in as a superstar player in this league.
But do you? I agree with you, but do you not believe those rumors that one of the reasons why Kevin Durant wants out is because of Ben Simmons?
Listen, Brandon, I can absolutely believe anything you told me. With Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving at the center of this, and with Ben Simmons, you could convince me of anything that's gone on inside the walls of the Brooklyn Nets. But, and I remember this so distinctly from the first year, we've seen cracks now, but in that first year, when we got to the season, we all said, all right, brace for impact. They're going to feed the sports talk media take cycle for weeks at a time. And there was nothing that season. There wasn't a peep. They went out and played ball. There were injuries that kept it all from happening at the same time, but it was largely ball in that first season. And so I'm willing to, in the last couple of years, look at a lot of what's happened and say, if I'm the Nets, this was the only way. This was the only way for you. And again, that's why I go back to Kevin Durant. We've seen superstars that would not comply with that. And so Kevin Durant and how unique he is as one of the big faces of this league and one of the big stars in this league, I think that's got to be a factor in all this. So I don't know if it's replicable. I don't know, because again, these situations are rare. They don't happen with that many players. They are guys of this caliber that are usually capable of even going down this road. And so we're dealing with the smallest sample size possible. But it's fascinating to watch that now all of a sudden, after one statement that used way too many different fonts and sizes and capitalizations before, and then lowercase the other part that confused the hell out of me, if you've seen the net statement that they put out on their Twitter account with the boardroom in conjunction with Kevin Durant. Besides that, Brandon,
so nasty.
It was really visually unappealing.
But this is one of those things. These are one of the tea leaves, one of the rose petals that lead me to think that it's a collusion. They're working together. Well, Kevin Durant knew he wasn't going anywhere. Mike, think about it.
Then look at the NBA Brandon. Then what's the point? What was the point of doing all that if he knew he wasn't going anywhere?
To let everyone know. That's what I'm saying. That's where the collusion comes. It's to put to bed the narrative that NBA players have all the power in the NBA. We know it's the truth.
Absolutely.
But I think
absolutely do not believe that. That is far too big a conspiracy to think they would go through all of that effort, that Kevin Durant would sign up to collude with his organization to show other players in the NBA that player movement is not something you want to get involved into. No, Brandon, absolutely not. Bridge too far.
This is Adam Silver. Listen. I'll say this: Kevin Durant doesn't want to be there, and I think Kyrie Irving definitely doesn't want to be there. And I think this is the world of transparency. So them letting that information out isn't the part of the collusion. That's factual, right? That's real still. the fact that they have to be there and they don't have the power to necessarily snap their fingers and go to the Memphis Grizzlies just because he feels like it. I think that's something that's a reality that needed to be reminded to not only the fans, but NBA players as well.
See, I actually disagree on that. It's again, like, if Kevin Durant wanted to continue to make this ugly and threatened to, like, he could have done all the things. There were still tools left in the bag as far as being a player who wants your way out of a certain situation. Hell, we saw James Harden out there mailing it in on the court, showing up to press conferences.
That's James Harden.
But I'm saying, Brandon,
but that's James Harden.
Possible.
He doesn't love ball. He doesn't love ball the way Kevin Durant does. And in that regard, the Nets do have the leverage because they hold the ball.
Yeah, Brandon, you're making the point for me, though, in that Kevin Durant is wired different than some of the other star players we've seen make this moves. He's harder to predict. He's a guy that we know very little about how he moves day to day. That's my whole point, is this might be unique to Kevin Durant, who did not feel like, because I don't discount how hard it is to be a player that goes into that situation and tries to willingly subvert your team's success, threatens to sit out, doesn't go out there with the guys that you've been, like, people make that seem like it's easy. I can't imagine it's easy to show up, look your teammates in the eye and say, man, listen, like, I got to do me on this one. Like, we've been in locker rooms and no, you spend too much time working too hard with these guys to just say it's easy to cut bait and run. I do not believe that.
But do you know where you can do it and who can do it? If you're Kevin Durant, and if it's you're a guy whoever team you're on is at the least fourth when it comes to futures of who's going to win the NBA championship. I think Kevin Durant is built a little different. How much we don't know him and understand him. Hell, he was sitting down with David Letterman and he was like, oh, do you like weed? He's like, yeah, I'm high right now. It's like, it was one of the first times we had seen such transparency and clarity.
It is amazing that we went from that to Aaron Rodgers a few weeks later. Like, yeah, I did ayahuasca over off season. Why do you ask?
Right.
An unprecedented time.
Kevin Durant is literally like this walking example, this Rosa Parks of a leader. Okay, I went too far. But what I'm trying to say is monkey see, monkey do, and I think this is why this is happening right now. That even when you're the biggest star in the NBA, arguably the best player in the NBA right now, once out, quote unquote, once out, he's got to wait a little.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fascinating to see if other teams, if they are pressed in the same situation, will try and play hardball for longer than they would have before. I think, again, the situation the team is in matters relative to some of the examples that we've talked about in the past. I think Kevin Durant, as the star player in the middle of this, like we have both said, matters in the way that he is wired and the fact that he was probably going to stop short. But regardless, now we got this Nets team potentially coming together. We haven't heard from Kyrie Irving in a while. I saw Shams on with McAfee basically saying they're not going to deal him to the Lakers. That's not something real that's going to happen. So we might just have all these guys and actually get to see what happens. But Brandon, I want to see what happens because you've been sitting there with a chicken sausage straw for about 20 minutes now, and I have not let you get and go and be great. So, Brandon, for our friends in the YouTube audience here, would you like to take a sip through your chicken sausage straw?
I would love to sip some water through this juicy ass sausage. Let me go ahead and give y'all. Ooh, look at that!
It's deeply disturbing.
You see that hole? Y'all see that hole?
So is it water? It's water you're drinking right now?
Yes, I'm tainting my water with a very, very juicy chicken sausage. I'm going tip to mouth. By the way, the opposite of what you did.
Man, you got to really check the phrasing. I'm hearing some slurping. This is good ASMR.
Oh, this is. I mean, let me get y'all close one.
I hate you. How is it in all seriousness? Because again, a beer's got all the carbonation and flavor and hops to dilute this. You're going straight water, so you've quite literally gone into this as controlled an environment as you can.
It's what I imagine natural spring water would taste like. You
Wow.
know, like the iron from the rocks and the grout and stuff like that. Like sucking.
When they talk about how
water through
clean
all
that like water in a river or stream is because it goes over the rocks and it helps to aerate it and all that stuff.
Yes. And you taste the minerals in it, like drinking this beautiful, crisp, cold water through the herbs and spices stuffed in this chicken sausage around the casing. Mike, I'm going to repeat this like off air.
Brandon's just going to be chilling on a hot summer afternoon as we get ready for football season, sit back in a lawn chair and sip his cold beverage through an icy cold chicken sausage. All right, so we've tested it for you. According to the GoJo podcast, banana straw for rosé, thumbs up. Chicken sausage straw for water, also thumbs up. If you've got ideas, we're happy to hear them. At GoJo Show on Twitter. Download, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. Brandon.
This tastes good, man. Go ahead.
You know what? It does taste good. You know what else feels and tastes good, Brandon? Getting your body right and keeping yourself in tip-top condition with our friends at Dr. Emil Nutrition.
Now you're talking.
I can say, watch me transition my way into that one as I flick my banana straw remnants in front of me here. But after you're done eating chicken sausage and bananas, you can talk to our friends at Dr. Emil Nutrition. They want to help make you healthy so that you can absorb these moments better. They want to make holistic health and happiness accessible to everyone here. And they've got a bunch of different great products for you to try along the way here. I've told you guys about recovery. Important to me as we're out here rising and grinding, getting ready for the season. Easy dose sleep support helps get you a quality night's sleep, promotes cell regeneration, detoxification. It boosts your immune system so that if you're traveling out on the road this year to go see your favorite team play, you got a good chance at fighting germs along the way now that your immune system is boosted and taken care of here. Dr. Emil's array of natural, high-quality supplements were hand-selected to enhance each aspect of your personal wellness journey. So visit DrEmilNutrition.com and use the discount code GOJO20, that's GOJO20, get you 20% off plus free shipping on all orders. Again, visit Dr. Emil, spelled DREMIL, nutrition.com. Brandon, how's that hot dog straw sitting for you?
Well, Mike, I'm really feeling good. I feel like I had a sensu bean or something.
Back in fighting form, looking good, feeling good. Brandon, while they are not the sunglasses that we endorse on this podcast, did come into today wearing sunglasses that actually allow him to see better. He is much like his friend in the Baltimore Ravens safety room that was quite literally close to blind, but now he sees on the field. So Brandon is podcasting with clear 20/20 vision today. And that's good because coming up in a second, we're going to take a quick break here. And when we come back, we're going to take a look at a story that I absolutely need Brandon to see clearly because I am thoroughly confused. Next. All right, Brandon, before we take a look at AI taking over the world of music, maybe.
Whew. Yeah.
We got a response from Derek Carr. So last time on Dragon Ball Z, we talked about it in this podcast. It was everywhere this weekend, but Dana White came out over the weekend on the Gronkcast for UFC 278 and said that he had helped personally broker a deal that would have gotten Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski to the Las Vegas Raiders. Everyone then went running back to Tom Brady appearing on LeBron's show The Shop, talking about a team backing out at the end of free agency when he was leaving New England, and referenced the quarterback when saying, they're really sticking with that motherfucker. Everyone put two and two together, realized Derek Carr was that guy, and so the media did what they're supposed to do. Went to Derek Carr on Tuesday and asked if he was immune to stories about his future as the Raiders quarterback, and he said, by now, I would hope so. It is what it is. I worked to put a deal together. Oh no, sorry, that was I'm reading the quote from Dana White here. Yeah. But Derek Carr, who was over the weekend, claimed that he didn't really see a lot of this. He said he was helping someone in the Raiders organization dealing with a death, and he said, Derek Carr, who I think scored a lot of leadership points with people over last season with everything that went down with Henry Ruggs on that team and how he stepped up and was a sort of calming voice for a franchise that between that, what happened with John Gruden, was really a kind of North Star for them in some turmoil last season that could have gone sideways. He said that it was a moment that put things in perspective. It really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, anything I say will be blasted out there. So I'm just going to completely remove myself and just keep trying to play football. It's been nice answering football questions. Hopefully no more drama in the city. Brandon, I'll tell you what, masterclass in robot quarterback stuff. Like, he has been put in the most uncomfortable situation. And when we say, a lot of times, when guys step on themselves in the media or say something that ends up getting them to trouble, we know we want real answers. It's this constant juggling act that we do as a media and as a general public with athletes, where we want them to give us real answers. And we want them to actually give us of themselves. But we also understand, and you and I know this from actually being players and having to go through this in a locker room, sometimes it is a little better to just say nothing. And in this case, Derek Carr set a very solid brand of nothing to get himself away from this. Because he's right. If Derek Carr said something, then it's taking that statement, running to Tom Brady with that statement, asking him about that more than he's probably already going to get asked about that. And so Derek Carr basically did, if you've ever had a tweet that's gotten some like really nasty comments under it, nasty reaction, even if you went into it with the best intentions, you delete it and it cuts off the source. You're at least helping stymie some of that. Derek Carr deleted the tweet on this, and I can't say I blame him.
I hear you. I hear you on that, but I don't think it was nothing. I think Derek Carr believes this, and obviously he knows he doesn't want to turn this into, week 4, we're continuing this bad game of telephone between Tom Brady addressing who the motherfucker was and Derek Carr defending himself being good for the Raiders, right? Like a good actor, and I think Derek Carr is, a lot of you got to be to kind of answer these questions at the podium at times. You have to believe what you're saying, right? And I truly believe at this point in time, the character that is Megamind playing Derek Carr really believes that he's just there to talk about football. He just wants to win a championship with the Raiders. He just wants to retire in Las Vegas. And he knows that he has to play to earn his job every year. It seems like sometimes in the middle of the year and near the end of the year, he forgets it when he makes those decisions that obviously put the Raiders on the opposite side of the playoffs. And but it's the Raiders. But obviously new expectations, Josh McDaniels, blah 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 blah. All I'm saying is I truly do believe that Derek Carr comes from the heart when he speaks, and that is something that I had to it was the Hard Knocks, honestly. It was that year at the Hard Knocks when we got a chance to follow him around, the AB feet and all the other crazy stuff was going on. I didn't become a fan of Derek Carr, but I finally realized that he wasn't capping every time he opened his mouth.
Yeah, I think there's been a groundswell of respect for Derek Carr, both as a player who I think has been underrated in the last few years because they had a porous offensive line that couldn't really protect him. The defense struggled in the last couple of years with John Gruden there in different ways. So a lot of what happened with them was certainly stuff that was at times outside of his control. And he was a player that has performed statistically at a pretty high level and been able to get them through some tough situations. So I do think there's mounting respect for Derek Carr. I still don't think that changes the fact that, once again, he's in a very interesting situation with the Raiders based on what his dead cap number is next year. They can get out of him for basically $5 million. And so those conversations are going to persist, but this one's not going to. That being said, I did see Pro Football Talk post an article about this, and I've always said one of the toughest parts about being famous is there's a stock photo of you for the perfect reaction to every headline. And Derek Carr with the faraway defeated look in his eyes on the top of that article. Credit where it's due. It's the perfect thumbnail for that, as he has now artfully gotten himself away from this situation. So Derek Carr, I applaud you for your effort on that one of giving the media absolutely nothing to work with on this front, when I'm sure it would have been very easy and satisfying to go out here and clap back a little bit. But Brandon, I want to get to this. This was a story you actually sent me a news article about a couple of days ago, where artificial intelligence rapper FN Mecca had been signed by Capitol Records. If that's a confusing headline, believe me, you're not alone. This was essentially a CGI creation, a digital person that was rapping under the name FN Mecca, that was supposedly an AI amalgamation of a bunch of different rappers, both looks-wise and, speech flow, the actual lyrics that ended up coming out of the song Florida Water, and then I think Speed was the other one.
Mike, these lyrics are the algorithm. Like the lyrics, that's the problem with this whole thing, is that taking the human out of it, and we're going to get into it specifically.
So let me just like frame the rest of it, because it is kind of it is kind of difficult to understand. So a guy named Anthony Martini and Brandon Lee, who are behind the company called Factory New that specializes in creating virtual music artists, were the ones that came out and designed FN Mecca. It was a project that they had designed and that apparently had gained enough traction for Capitol Records to try and do what I'm sure seemed like a very trendy thing. As we see the metaverse and all of this digital IP starting to take off, they said, yeah, we'll sign a rapper who's essentially an amalgamation of a bunch of SoundCloud pages. And then the real world got a hold of this one. And a group called Black Industry Professionals described this product and began protesting it online, saying it was, quote, a direct insult to the black community and our culture, an amalgamation of gross stereotypes and appropriative mannerisms that derive from black artists, complete with the slurs infused in that lyrics. Like, this digital artist did use the N-word and did, appear in a song with other rappers. So, Brandon, as we sit and digest all this now, like, this obviously went famously bad very quickly. Inside of 2 days, we were done and gone, and FN Mecca had been canceled. Like, this feels that way, but is this inherently racist, what happened here?
No. I would say... I'll say this. They made this character to be culturally ambiguous, right? He wasn't supposed to be this black rapper. He just happens to look like a mix between Lil Pump and Lil Uzi Vert.
Well, and they said
Tekashi 6ix9ine.
They said as much that when the creator was pressed on this and finally admitted, because for a while the people behind this were sort of operating in secrecy. There wasn't right away a very frontal admitting that this was an avatar behind which real people were working. And we always talk about this anonymity on the internet can at times be a very dangerous thing. And in this case, when you have people operating behind the scenes on this that are not people of color, that are all of a sudden taking, and they said the design for this rapper visually, you're right, mentioned some of those names, Lil Pump, Tekashi 6ix9ine, like, we're absolutely drawing from them as inspiration. I forget the name of the artist that they used for the actual voice. Like, they wanted you to believe that all of this was just a digital AI creation, when in actuality, it took the work of a lot of human beings who, when we talk about cultural appropriation all the time, Brandon, this seems like the most distilled down version of that possible, where you're literally having a group of people who don't look like the artist that they're taking from put this together and then try and, I mean, not take credit for it, but certainly benefit from the success of it publicly.
Oh, I mean, the fact that this person, this entity, these individuals were trying to sign a record label and continue to climb the charts as an AI entity is crazy. Not only is it mocking hip hop and rap music to a buffoonery level, like, you can talk about how much this is like mimics and is similar to a lot of things that are actually real. The difference is these things are actually real. Those are actually real people. And for someone who is an AI creation to promote gun violence, seems pretty crazy and disrespectful. So not only is it a mockery, it is literally breaking down clout chasing to a science, right? Like, it's like what can make someone cool? What can make someone hit? This person has, or this AI character,
FN
Mecca, who knew digital things could get canceled, right? Currently canceled. It's canceled with 10 million plus followers on TikTok right now, right? And they try to use a streamer like this Florida Water song, which is literally just like buzzwordy, is it not? Like the Migos, when they made Motorsport, they very popularly said, why'd you make a song called Motorsport? It was like, we literally looked on YouTube and saw the number one trending thing, and it was always Motorsport. So we decided to make a song around it.
And Brandon, that is what's behind this, is the fact that AI has been used by a bunch of legitimate, normal human artists to try and draw on trends, to help them in different ways in creating what they are creating. And a lot of this was just feeding in popular songs, what was trending, figuring out the way to like a lot of industries are, whittle down to a science what we like and then spit it back at us. It's the algorithm that we work with on social media every day, but trying to turn it into the actual art we consume instead of just the platform that delivers it to us.
Right, exactly. And that's when it gets hairy, because it's like, okay, am I ingesting this and enjoying it because I actually enjoy it, or am I ingesting this and liking this because the influencers tell me to? Because I'm pressured to think that because this person has so many followers that this is new and hot and great, and I am on the outside looking in, and everyone wants to get in on these things. One of my biggest issues with this is the fact that it's actively putting out creators, right, in a space where musicians already struggle to make money in the streaming age because they're not touring and they're not going out and doing things. Like, this is a cheat code. Like, Industry Baby is a popular song with Lil Nas X and Jack Harlow. Both of those guys have been had the negative moniker of being industry baby people. And if you don't know what that means, basically it's like Logic is an example of this. He was signed to Def Jam, and before he put out any real music, he was taught how to make music, taught how to brand himself, and people frown upon that and call it, now you're industry baby. Like, you're being packaged to be consumed by the masses.
This is how a lot of people always think of, like, boy bands that were put together. And how that, like,
and
you think about, like, something,
and that's why
you think about something like One Direction, when they were all on that British singing show, where they said, like, you guys might go home, but Simon Cowell goes, if you guys will all come together, we'll let you stay and continue to compete there. And a lot of people may at the beginning have looked at them in a negative light because they thought they were some sort of pop creation that was supposed to just give the masses what everyone thought they wanted.
Right. And that's why, and they've been trying to compare this, saying FN Mecca is like the Gorillaz. It's like, well, it's not like the Gorillaz, because the Gorillaz made a group, a 2D group at a time where boy bands were in the craze, so they were trying to do the antithesis of that. So, like, it was a lot of human decisions created around it, and these people tour and are real in person, and I don't like the comparison at all.
Well, and I think with that too, you knew there were people behind that. This at the beginning was basically trying to say, and the guys over at genius.com, who you think of as the site you go to look up lyrics on, did a really good breakdown of this. And they said part of the problem was, if you come out and admit there are real people behind pulling the string, and there's someone that has to answer for what this thing does, then there feels like we're at least playing with the cards up. This is the opposite exactly of what you just described with the Gorillaz, which is, we knew there were people behind that. No one thought that these 2D cartoon characters just came to life and started making tunes. They wanted you to believe for a while that this three-dimensional digital creation was out here doing this on its own. And at the end of the day, it is like the most distilled down, clear form of appropriation that we've seen. Even if I can look at this and say that while I am not going to go quietly in this good night when our robot overlords come, I am generally scared of most of that technology. The Boston Dynamics people putting out those dog robot videos freak me the hell out. I'm deathly afraid of that. I know friend of the podcast, Chris Long, has been fighting the good fight against the robot revolution for a long time. But you see creative use of AI by artists, and that is not something I have an issue with, because it's still tied to someone who has to use that the right way. This does start to feel like the algorithm come to life in a way that kind of does feel like a weird transition point that I don't know if we're prepared for.
Yeah, well, obviously, the people that are trying to roll it out need some time to figure things out as well, because they're not doing a great job of it. But the last thing I want to say on this is, for people who think that we're being alarmist by thinking this is ridiculous and crazy and a step in the wrong direction when it comes to the future of music, imagine if in the NFL they just signed a kicker who had the accuracy of a Justin Tucker and was able to kick a 66-yarder and could make a new, and you just rolled them out every now and then. Like, this is taking away jobs, because shout out to Charlotte Wilder, rap game music is sports, right? And if we're using AI as steroids and this complete entity, the steroid entity that's just literally online being created, getting bigger and stronger the more it gets feed with buzzwords and keywords and algorithm, whatever the algorithm sauce, right? It's making it so the real artists out there that are trying to break through can't. Right, so I think it's very important that we try to put a stop to this now, and we don't have to continue to put a stop to FN mechas from other corporations and companies going down the line. Let them be popular on TikTok. He can continue to be sponsored because FN Mecha is sponsored by Starbucks and Supreme. They are making their money already.
I understand that, and that's what this is. It's a money-making venture. It's interesting because we have seen plenty of industries where automation has affected very real human jobs. That is not something that's unique to just music. That's something that's life. True. And we're just at sort of an uncomfortable inflection point where I think we've all got to grapple with, because this is probably the point where I'm starting to feel my age and look at something that I don't fully understand in the way that the people coming up under us do. But it is a time to kind of stop and reflect and ask ourselves that question of how much of this are we comfortable with? Because you're right, this first one failed. It doesn't mean this is going to stop. There's a whole group of these people making this stuff. I will say, though, that when I saw this, I did think we're only years away from ESPN Plus offering us Stephen A. Smith debating Stephen AI.
Okay, now.
By the way, shout out to the Dill Pickle on Twitter, who showed me the error of my ways and offered me that Stephen AI. I'm not going to take credit for that. It's a fantastic name.
Okay, good.
It was a better submission than my initial response, but I would absolutely sign up to watch Stephen A. debate the AI amalgamation of his own takes.
Well, since we're calling out people on Twitter, and we're about to transition to a different topic, I imagine, I'm wearing a Lamar Jackson jersey today because somebody on Twitter tried to chirp at me and tell me that obviously my sports takes are awful, but specifically that I act like the Ravens are the only NFL team in the NFL, or the Ravens are the only team in the NFL. I mean, isn't that how fans work? I mean, they are. Everything makes sense via how they butt heads with the Ravens.
I will say, Brandon, and I will give you a little bit of credit on this one. You did, when we were giving out roses the other day with Charlotte Wilder, give one to a backup quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, who are in that division. So to say that you don't see football outside of the Ravens is just wrong. Josh Dobbs got himself a rose from Brandon Newman,
where I should have given it to Isaiah Likely.
Yes, exactly. But you didn't, because you were the bigger man, and we thank you for that.
Thank you.
Brandon, you know what else we thank you for around here, around this show?
Ooh, what?
Is providing an answer to the question every time I ask of Brandon, do you know what time it is?
If you want to be my lover, you got to get with my friends. This, that, and the third, 'cause friendship never ends. If you want to be my lover, you have got to give. This, that, and the third, 'cause that's the way it is. What you think about that? Now that's this, that, and the third.
Did my clapping fuck you up? It felt like it messed you up a little bit.
I was, you know me. I was about to crash anyways. You know what I mean? So we can move on.
That's fine.
I just wanna this, that, da. Send the party down. The party's around.
God, it's an absolute heater. One that instantly, we talk about all the time, songs that get white people going. That one's gonna get white people going every single time.
Man, and that movie was amazing. Talk about the blockbuster days. I rented Spice World many a time.
There we go. I learned something I didn't know about Brandon Newman today. Spice World in a ready rotation in the VHS days. Brandon, someone who has come a long way from the VHS days, is our first entrant in this. Nick Saban signs a contract extension and once again becomes the highest paid coach in college football, moving past Georgia's Kirby Smart, who is the latest to hold that option. Nick Saban signs a $93.6 million extension over the next 8 years. The life of that deal would take him to the age of 78 years old. His contract increases in base comp every year by $305,000. The main part of the contract involves a talent fee, which starts at almost $9.5 million during 2022. and will increase to $12,395,000 by the end of the contract when Saban is 79. He also receives an $800,000 contract completion benefit each year between 2022 and 2025. They found so much creative way to give this money to the surest bet in college football. Brandon, every time these numbers come up with Nick Saban, somehow it still doesn't feel like enough because we are pro paying the players and all that. We understand and acknowledge the importance they have to the game. No one has been as important to their institution as Nick Saban has been to Alabama in the last 2 decades of college football. And it seems that he is nowhere close to ending his dominant run.
Yeah, this is silly, Mike. I think Nick Saban purposely called out Jimbo Fisher because he knew this was coming. He was like, listen, guys, look at the numbers. I moved the needle, so you got to give me the money, damn it.
Why did you give Nick Saban a mid-Atlantic accent? Nick Saban's reading the news during World War II. Have you heard the news? I'm paid $10.7 million a year. I'm paid more than Kirby Smart. My former assistants could never hope to achieve the kind of generational wealth that I have, you see?
See, when you're only focused on the game in front of you and you're trying to make sure your every down is the next most important down, then the money just comes in. It just starts printing for you.
By the way, I was wrong. Nick Saban of Mid-Atlantic fame will now make $11.7 million per season on average over the life of this contract. He has cleared $100 million in career earnings at Alabama as of this year. So
is he got an NIL thing? Like is he one of the trusts?
Oh, I'm sure
that the players are going to get paid from.
Well, again, this is a reminder. There's always money. As we're going to get ready to, I think, have more and more pay for play conversations coming up for real. Kevin Warren in the Big Ten said and talked about the Big Ten being on the forefront of that conversation. There is always money. We will always be able to find it. But again, I don't want that to distract from the fact that Nick Saban is overwhelmingly worth this money. And I saw our friend T-Bob Hebert talking about this on Volume, a lot of people have contended that it has made college football very boring. I don't really agree because Alabama post-Lane Kiffin has become one of the teams that does fun stuff on offense. They've got a really well-developed NFL offense. They've had a bunch of exciting wide receivers. We had the first quarterback in the history win the Heisman there last year. We had a wide receiver from there win it a couple of years before. So I think they've reinvented themselves enough for, while it's certainly... No one's going to argue, and this goes all the way back to, now, there was a different tenor around this with the UConn women's basketball conversation because people just used that as a way to discredit women's basketball anyway for people who already weren't watching women's basketball. They just wanted to use that as an excuse to do something that they already weren't doing. So that was kind of a bad faith argument, but... It's certainly tough going into every year, whereas we sit here now, Alabama, Ohio State, and Clemson are probably going to be the first 3 names out of most people's mouths. You can throw Georgia in there as well for potential college football playoff teams, but there's just no debating. They continue to put the best product on the field year after year. They have spent and really shown the rest of big-time college football what it takes. There was a picture of Billy Napier's staff at Florida that got taken on Team Picture Day, and there were more people in blue polos than there were in blue uniforms. The size of these staffs and the role of analysts that Alabama has made famous over the years, the Nick Saban School of Wayward Boys, where he brings in these coaches, parks them as analysts for a year, and then spits them out with a shiny new coat of paint, off to make millions in a new job. That has set the table for what the rest of college football on that level now believes the standard is. So Nick Saban has changed the sport in the modern era. He's the best coach in the history of the sport, and it appears that he is never going to stop doing this. At some point, we're going to need Miss Terry to be the one to take up for everyone else. Much in the same way we've known Giselle wants Tom Brady to stop playing football, we're going to need Miss Terry's going to have to be the one that just lightly taps Nick Saban on the shoulder, his longtime wife, and the only person on earth who can somehow corral Nick Saban. We're going to need Miss Terry to be the one to tap him on the shoulder and be like, you're done now. That's the only way it's going to end.
I don't know, man. I'm wondering. I don't care about Nick Saban. Like, his dominance doesn't bother me. Like, that Alabama team, like, in a very weird way. Maybe I'm, like, traumatized by it. But, like, you know how, like, with the Warriors championships, they were all different. They all, like, kind of won in a different way debatably, right? Like with the dynasty, like I don't even think that for Alabama. I know you're saying the offense has changed and it is opened up, and you're like, yeah, they now have good quarterbacks instead of terrible quarterbacks. But still, like it just doesn't matter to me. Like, can we not talk about the fact that Georgia beat them last? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like Georgia should feel all kinds of disrespect considering how hard they've worked in that conference to gain respect. And at the end of the day, everyone's like, Nick Saban football. Like, I mean, I was trying to do a college football Nick Saban fusion dance. I couldn't finish it.
Make it sound like it was like the old Tiger Woods golf game, but Nick Saban college football instead of like NCAA college football. But Brandon, the problem with that is they've proven year in and year out they're going to be there. And Georgia and Kirby Smart deserve a ton of credit. They got a big-time monkey off their back this last year. They were close to that in the years prior when them and Alabama met in Atlanta for the national title that Tua won in the second half. But bottom line is they didn't. Alabama's got a bunch of victims in their wake, and they are the standard that everyone else is judged by. When it was them and Clemson going back and forth, it was relative to them. And now for Georgia, it's can you do what Alabama consistently does and show up there again and get back to there again? And while back-to-back shouldn't be the standard, because again, that's a uniquely Bama thing and something that they've really only done in recent history, this is the standard that the rest of the sport at that level is judged by. And I understand why that happens, because we know they're the most consistent product year in and year out in college football. No matter who assistant-wise is on the sideline there, no matter who's the quarterback or the star player, that machine keeps on turning, Brandon. That is what we've all got to look forward to. So strap in, folks. More Alabama dominance on the way. But Brandon, change is in the air out in Los Angeles. Now, unfortunately, Lakers fans, that has nothing to do with the potential future of Russell Westbrook and what you guys may think of that contract. But the Los Angeles Angels could potentially undergo an ownership change. Arte Moreno, who was the president and has been the president over the last 2 decades, has initiated a formal process to evaluate strategic alternatives, including the possible sale of the team. The expectation is that it'll eventually be sold, but still, this is the end of an era, no doubt. And Brandon, this is the ultimate. You either, go out the hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Because when Marino took over this team, he was the first Mexican-American to become the majority owner of a team. He was popular because he came in and lowered beer prices. He splurged on big-time free agents. He tried to bring that in there, and they had a period of 5 division titles in 6 years from 04 to 09. And then after that, it disappeared. And now all they are known for is having a team that's managed to squander Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani being in the same lineup for 2 years, and Mike Trout for even longer than that. But Brandon, the important part of this is Shohei Ohtani is going to be a free agent after the 2023 season. And new ownership around there gives me some hope that we may see a world where we get to hashtag free Shohei and get him to a team that might actually be able to play in postseason baseball and get to see this guy that's lived up to the billing and more since he got over here from Japan playing meaningful baseball for a team that's not going to squander him. Like, Mike Trout's probably going to be there for a duration. I think his contract has him there through like 2030 or something like that, and he's got a no trade clause. So he's probably sticking around there for the foreseeable future, but we still got time to save Shohei during the prime of his career, and I want to see that happen.
Talk baseball to me. Where would you like to see Shohei play next? Honestly, as someone who follows the storylines and the narratives, what is the most sexiest place for Shohei to show up?
So honestly, I won't even go with sexy, because obviously I think people are going to fantasize about him potentially ending up in pinstripes out in New York with the Yankees. I think people always love the idea of him winding up with a team like the Dodgers, because we love to shove all our stars in these coastal elites. I think I remember when Shohei first came over here, there was another team that got mentioned in this. And based on what we just saw leading up to the All-Star break this season, what a story they've been for the majority of the year, I'd love to see Shohei end up in Seattle. Shohei with the Mariners. Seattle, coming off the Russell Wilson era in football, having their basketball team taken from them in our lifetime. That city would be awesome to watch have that kind of momentum, put together a run, Julio Rodriguez and Shohei Ohtani as the centerpieces for a team that could potentially really do something would, I think, be a blast. So that would be what I would silently root for in this. I don't know if it's realistic. That's for, Jared Carrabis and the Baseball is Dead guys to try and tell you the smart thing about this. I'm just going to tell you if I could window shop and do whatever I wanted, that would be where I placed him.
But because of that, this fantasy world, I see him in Seattle chasing young King Griffey Jr. home runs, which got me thinking, I would love to see Shohei with the baseball giants in San Francisco.
Ooh.
Wouldn't that be nice to see him just hitting some bombs up there? Just literally just head north in California and just keep living his own life? He'd love it up there.
All right.
I don't even know him, and I think he'd love it up there.
Yeah, I know nothing about this young man, but I feel like you'd kind of dig that.
Nothing.
Do you like extremely expensive real estate in a crowded city? Because boy, oh boy, do I have the place for you, Shohei.
Man.
Exciting. So
Anaheim or San Francisco.
Listen, if nothing else, Brandon, this kind of volatility up top creates a really interesting situation. We have the recent example of what happened in Washington when there was changes up top there and what it led to with one of their star players. So I think there's some hope for most of us that just are general fans of baseball. I'm sure Angels fans are all screaming, but they've had enough to complain about in recent years. I'm sure part of them would love to see a player go and actually be able to do something somewhere if their team's not going to be able to do it. And, probably trade him next year so you can get a haul in return before he hits free agency type thing. But,
right.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are rooting for this to happen. But, Brandon, let's get to the third, because what I am really rooting for is the chance to go back to college. Because...
Here you go.
Yes, sir. You already know. The University of Texas at Austin is offering a course in English on Taylor Swift this fall. Now, the course, Literary Contest and Contexts, the Taylor Swift Songbook, is going to be offered to undergrads at UT in their liberal arts honors program this fall semester. Professor Elizabeth Scala is teaching the class, and their whole idea is to use and try and demonstrate introductory literary studies and research methods with the songs of Taylor Swift as the backbone of this. And Brandon, it makes perfect sense. You've got one of the more motivated and diligent fan bases on earth who are used to having to parse through weird messages. I remember when Taylor Swift put out the list of song titles in anagram form that we all spent days poring over. They know you've got a very dedicated fan base who's willing to come in and do the work, who is so obsessed with the subject matter that you'd be able to teach them anything. One of the big regrets of my life, Brandon, is that I went through college at a time before I was really interested in learning, which is like the most normal problem ever. We're all in college just wanting to drink and carry on and do our thing. I feel like I would have gotten a lot more out of college now, as I'm sure is not unique, to me. I'm sure it's pretty common sentiment, but with this, I feel like you got a real chance to grab people because Taylor Swift's got a hold. We talked about this when Beyonce's Renaissance came out, that the biggest opening weekends of all time, 3 of the top 10 belong to Taylor Swift albums. The Swifties are built different. So I'm petitioning for Texas to let me come and be a student in this one class this fall, to take the class online maybe. Like, I'll pub it here. We can have the professor on. We can bring Nora Princiati and Nathan Hubbard on, who host the Every Single Album Taylor Swift podcast over at The Ringer. We can do it all. We can be like the office hours for this class over on the podcast.
As someone who I've sat in a class in college specifically about music and a genre, it doesn't seem too crazy. Shouts out to Taylor for having the longevity to be so young and still have a class taught about her. But it just has me thinking about all the different artists that I could probably teach a class on, or would like to teach a class on, or would go to see a class.
Ooh.
But Taylor Swift sounds like a great class to go to take a nice nap.
See, you don't have to do this, Brandon. You don't have to be like...
What, you don't think so?
No.
How's that not the case?
Class
That's
would
not
be
a slight. That's not a slight.
riveting.
That's not a slight.
That is a slight, Brandon.
I'm sure I wake it up when they cover Shake It Off, but everything else,
I will say, Texas State is doing a course on Harry Styles that's going to be taught in spring of 23. So, Brandon, if there was an artist you could teach a class on, who would it be?
It's embarrassing. I don't want to talk about it.
I want to hear you say
but
it.
No,
I want to see. I want to see you
probably,
fix your lips to say it.
Probably Big Sean.
Oh, I didn't. I didn't know you were going to say that.
See how I took you left? I took you left with it. Not that I would enjoy it, but because I'm not going to give you I'm not going to give it to you. I'm not going to give you the satisfaction of putting on this podcast here the truth about the answer to that question.
You didn't want to say Kanye in public anymore, did you?
Oh, see, I was thinking Drake.
Oh, well, see, like, I kind of would get that one, but listen, the Kanye one's complicated. There, I think, would be a lot of really interesting stuff to learn. That class you mentioned where we talked about genres in music, we spent a lot of time studying Kanye at that time. That was when 808s and Heartbreak came out, which was a fascinating album, but it's complicated now, which, you know what, honestly could be an interesting part of the class, studying the long effects of Kanye West's fame and how he merged with pop culture, reality TV, the political realm in a way that got really ugly really quick. So maybe there is something.
Oh, actually,
there.
you might have stumbled on something. I definitely could teach a Kanye class before he ran for office, and I just do my research for when we get to that part of the curriculum. But I think he might be the most interesting class, and I wonder how much Kanye has talked in this Taylor Swift class. Talking about lyrics.
I'm sure it's going to come up at some point, Brandon. As will
snakes.
As will a number of other celebrities who we know are part of the Taylor Swift canon that's been discussed over the years.
I don't know about that.
I would very much enjoy attending your Drake class, Brandon, and seeing the sign on the door that said "No dogs allowed." As always.
Oh, man.
We appreciate everyone who makes it to the end of this podcast. We hope it's not a class that you fall asleep in. If you like it, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a 5-star rating and a review, and tell us which artist class you would like to attend in the upcoming fall semester. In the meantime, we have division previews wrapping up this week. We will have the AFC and NFC East coming to you later this week. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.